For joining us today. Good morning. We've got a packed house. This is exciting. My name is Mackenzie Dilbeck, and I'm with the University of Oklahoma. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for joining us in person, and thank you for joining us online. We have a full lineup of speakers today who have some very exciting news to share about how the University of Oklahoma and our state leaders are partnering together to grow the nursing workforce for our state. So to kick things off, I'm going to introduce each of our speakers individually, but to kick things off, I'm honored to welcome the 15th president of the University of Oklahoma, Joe Harris.
Thank you. This is a gallery of friends and leaders. It's an honor to be here. We think about the role of government in the lives of our citizens, and we think about the three key things that it can do, right? It can educate, it can provide for the health care of the state, and it can provide economic opportunity. And we think about the role of a flagship research university in a state, right? And the idea and the goal is not to be an ivory tower that's unattached, but to be a part of and a partner with the state and its leadership to move those three goals for our citizens forward. And it obviously starts and ends with the health of its population. Now today, not by accident that we're having this, is Nurses Day at the state capitol. Now, every year for the last 111 years, the nurses that are the helpers and healers across our state come to this capitol. They come with the nurses and the nursing students to advocate and ask for resources and to make sure that legislation is provided to allow them to do their jobs. Right? And standing here today, to me there are three words that really struck me. Right? Humbled, honored, and proud. Right? It's humbling because today they shouldn't be here asking us for resources. Right? With all we've been through the last 2 years, through this pandemic and the latest variant and all the suffering that we've seen, it's our job on Nurses Day to thank them, to show them the gratitude we have for them, because every one of us in this room, everyone in this room, I'll guarantee you, over the last 2 years, has had someone that's needed to be healed and comforted by a nurse. They are the front lines of health care in Oklahoma and across the nation. And we knew going in this that we had some challenges, even 2 years ago, pre-pandemic. We knew then we were 46th in the country in nurses per capita. And our leaders saw on the horizon the reality that was in Oklahoma and also beyond. And that was there were many nurses that were reaching retirement age. And then we had to find a way to provide more nurses to heal more people, or there would be catastrophic consequences. Of course, the pandemic merely catalyzed that, catalyzed it in a really aggressive way. And at every turn we've looked up, the answer hasn't been there aren't enough hospital beds to heal. The answer has been there are not enough nurses to tend to all of us that are in need and all of those we love who are in need. It's incredible. And so we stand here, I'm humbled to those heroes. And it's a word that is overused, but it's a word that is incredibly appropriate for our nurses. So going from humility and being humbled to being honored. Last year, the legislative leadership in this room, the governor, right, OU Health, all of those in this room, I'm not going to name everyone because everyone here has been involved, stepped up and said, let's be proactive and do something, and made the largest investment, starting with the request from the state regents, going through our legislative leadership, going to the desk of the governor. And we put in place a record amount to help grow our nursing faculty and nursing students in the state, and we did that. And we did that, we had real results in doing that. We increased the number of students immediately taken by 40 at OU, the largest nursing school in our state. We also increased by 48 the number of nursing slots available the next year with partnerships in Duncan and Norman. We also found new funding to hire more instructors to teach more students. During a nursing crisis, prices go up, and we had to make sure we could keep those that were teaching doing so. And so it was a huge move last year by the legislature and all of those involved. And it was an honor to be a part of that. But then, just last month, here in this building, in our state capitol, the governor gave his state of the state. Right? And in that, he offered an additional challenge. This idea of why were we leaving any qualified applicants not in programs? Well, the reality is it's difficult. It costs more to educate a nurse than is paid. And so finding those additional slots is not easy, but it's a huge challenge and a big question. And there are literally hundreds of qualified applicants that don't have spots in nursing programs, especially ours, the top one in the state. So we sat down with Dean Hoff, we sat down with our donors, we sat down with everyone involved. And huge props to to Interim Provost Raskob also, for their combined leadership. And we said, is there any way we can combine the resources and increase those numbers in a material way? Is it possible? And I'll be honest, at first we thought it wasn't possible. There was a really important gift from Fran and Earl Ziegler, a private gift that came in. Individuals after whom our College of Nursing is named. We tapped those resources. We went to additional resources inside of OU well beyond the College of Nursing and said, we have a crisis today. A crisis where people are literally dying. Let's tap every resource we have and see if there's any way we can get closer to the idea of taking those hundreds that are qualified and bringing them in and educating them this year. And how quickly can we do it? There's a traditional program. There's also an expedited 14-month program to get these nurses deployed sooner. We went about that. We looked at the numbers. Last year, even with the additional dollars, we admitted 366 students. That was only 62% of the qualified applicants because of a lack of space. And by the way, we have to also have places for these individuals to practice in a clinical setting, which requires all of the hospitals, including OU Health, to be a partner. We reached out to them as well. And we said, how much more can we do than 62%, even with this additional funding? This year, we have 555 qualified applicants to the OU College of Nursing. Historically, we would have been able to take about half of them. And I'm happy to announce and so proud to announce that because of the extraordinary work of the individuals in this room and those that couldn't be here today, we're not taking 40 more or 50 more or 100 more. We're taking every single one of those 555 qualified applicants. You know, this is a crisis we have to get through, and with this kind of can-do attitude and leadership, we will. We will get through it. But even beyond this year and next year and the years to come, God willing, past the pandemic completely, there is still a critical shortage of nurses in this state and in this nation, right? As we look at the roadmap ahead for the next decade, the reality is, by every indicator, it's one of the top 10 most needed jobs in Oklahoma over the next 10 years. And we think about what we do, there's a reason the Secretary of Commerce is here, right? Scott Mueller, who drove in late last night to be here, has been working with the governor and working with the legislature to move forward new and important jobs in this state. And it's stunning what's being done in every facet. And so as we look forward for the role of OU, its job is to be a partner with the leaders of our state, not to be an ivory tower, but to be a true partner moving our state forward so that we are providing for the health, the education, and the economic prosperity of this state. So today, on Nurses Day, I am so proud to be the one to have a chance to deliver this message. But of all of those emotions, I'll go back to humility, because it truly is. We think about the work that they do and how fragile we are in our lives whenever we need their help. As we stand here on Nurses Day, I just want to end by saying thank you to all of our nurses. We're grateful.
Thank you, President Harris. Now we're honored to be welcomed and joined by someone who understands the critical importance of expanding the nursing workforce in our state, the 28th Governor of the state of Oklahoma, Gov Stitt.
Thank you so much. Man, it's so good to be with all my friends and colleagues in the room. And Joe, what can I say? Thank you so much for your leadership in making this happen today. Just can't say enough things about your vision and your leadership and how important it is to the state of Oklahoma and the University of Oklahoma. We're certainly lucky to have you. And you mentioned it, but in my State of the State, we talked about needing more nurses, more engineers, more teachers. And that's what higher ed is supposed to be doing. That's what career techs are supposed to be doing. And so just really excited that you guys are, focusing, setting that vision and making it happen because, I like to say the impossible I can do the difficult right away. The impossible takes us just a little bit longer. And so, everybody always tells you, no, it can't be done. But it's the people that find a way to make things happen that move forward in life. And I've got a room, and Oklahoma is a state that figures out a way to make things happen. And this is a perfect example of that. And so, I challenged our whole entire education system, K through 12, to work together, to work with industry and business, and to hear from Scott Mueller and the legislature and what the business community was saying that they need to fill those jobs of tomorrow. And you guys stepped up. And so I don't know if everybody caught this, but I just want to hammer it home. Before, OU would not have room maybe for I guess you were accepting about 40% of qualified applicants. This year, they've accepted 100% of all the qualified applicants, so 550, and that's just amazing. And kudos to you, all of OU Health, everything that you're doing, the nurses. I met all your folks out in the hall, and just can't thank you enough for the fall classes, filling the needs. And I just want to also underscore how great the nurses are in the state of Oklahoma. Through COVID in the last 2 years, they've really held up Oklahomans. And I walked with them through all the hospitals and toured and saw the nurses that were literally holding the hands of Oklahomans, throughout this last couple years. And so we can't thank them enough. We owe a debt of gratitude to all of our healthcare professions who have worked so tirelessly to protect Oklahomans over the last couple years. So again, and thanks to the legislature, could not do it without you. The speaker, pro tem, we just had breakfast this morning. I love our relationship, friendship, and what you guys do for the state of Oklahoma. Just happy to be a small part here and making Oklahoma a top 10 state. Thank you for your leadership, Joe. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Governor Stitt. I understand all of our speakers have busy days, so at any time if you need to duck out, we understand. At this time, we will now welcome remarks from Oklahoma House Speaker Charles McCall.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here today, an exciting day. Thank you to all of our nurses across the state of Oklahoma, and I'd be remiss not to recognize my colleague in the House of Representatives, Representative Cindy Rowe, who is a practicing nurse here in the state of Oklahoma. Appreciate you being here. We have, President Harris, want to thank you for your leadership. We have every state in the union that is on the move, in the top of the pack, has a workforce issue that they're dealing with. When I hear the governor and the state of the state address reporting that we have 2.3% unemployment in the state of Oklahoma, 1.6% unemployment here in Oklahoma City, that is an indication that our economic engine is really close to redlining. Our capacity, we are meeting full capacity of our capability. So I appreciate the University of Oklahoma. I would expect no less from my alma mater, stepping up and leading. I want to thank all of our institutions of higher education across the state stepping up to help meet these workforce challenges. This is a great problem to have, but it takes leadership to address. Thank you for allowing me to say a few words. I commend you once again, President Harris, for your leadership, and we continue to look forward to working with you and higher education. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker McCall. Please join me in welcoming our next speaker, Oklahoma Senate Pro Tem Greg Treest.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. This is the second time I've been in this press room. The first time was when we were announcing the project together, so I appreciate the utilization. Governor slipped out. I actually came here to take a picture of him with the OU behind. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I've got it on my phone. But this is a momentous day, a huge day for Oklahoma. Thank you for keeping your commitment. When we were doing the sales tax work, you said, if you do this, I promise we'll deliver more. Thank you for keeping your promises. Thank you to my colleagues. Senator Pugh is here. Most of my colleagues are up right now voting. We went into session, so thank you for being here. Thank you for your leadership in Oklahoma's workforce development. But I'm just honored to be a small part of this deal. My daughter was at Children's Hospital just 5-6 weeks ago, and the care and the love that I saw from the nurses at that facility truly is life-affirming, life-changing. And I value everything you all do at the College of Nursing. We need to plug forward. This is a good start, but we need to go even further. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of it.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem, and we do understand that session is in, so if you all need to duck out, we appreciate that. At this time, we'll hear remarks from Oklahoma's Secretary of Commerce and Workforce Development, Scott Mueller.
Well, thank you very much, as a matter of fact, and thanks for being here, and thanks for including me as a part of it. My title, as was mentioned, I'm the Secretary of Commerce and Workforce Development. In that role, I spend really the lion's share of my time facing outward, speaking with prospective employers, trying to bring them to Oklahoma as opposed to somewhere else they might go. But a critical piece of that and a critical leg of that stool is Oklahoma's workforce. And without a highly qualified, highly capable, loyal workforce, we won't have any success bringing new employers here, and our existing employers won't be able to succeed. And so it's an effort that really success does beget success in this business. And so the more our existing workforce can succeed, the better standard of living they'll have. They can raise their standard of living, but the better it is for our employers, and very clearly, the better it is for Oklahoma's economy. We've got a 2.3% unemployment rate, as Speaker McCall mentioned. That is a terrific thing because it means we've been successful in bringing a lot of jobs here, but it does represent a real challenge. And in particular, as the Chief Operating Officer of the state, Steve Harp, and I look around at Oklahoma's workforce and identify fields where we have shortages, nursing always bubbles up to the top as among the most acute shortages in the state. And so as we've worked hard on that, you just kind of identify that it's going to require a real concerted effort from the private sector, the public sector, and like all of these problems, education and all of those institutions, starting with K through 12, up through career tech, and up through higher ed. And that's where I just want to kind of comment today on the real leadership shown by the University of Oklahoma and the system and the entire team in being an important part of this solution. As both Speaker McCall and Pro Tem Treest said, there's more work to do, but this is a critically important foundation on which we can build. So I'm thrilled to be a part of it, and I'd just like to say first, congratulations to each of you, President Harris and your team at OU, and then setting my role for the state government aside, just as a taxpayer, thank you for the leadership and the efforts to improve lives for Oklahomans.
Thank you, Secretary Mueller. We now have our final speaker of the day. I'm pleased to welcome the Dean of OU's Fran and Earl Ziegler College of Nursing, Dr. Julie Hoff.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. Not only am I the Dean of the Fran and Earl Ziegler College of Nursing, but I'm also the Interim Chief Nurse Executive at OU Health. So I have really seen the need for nurses on both sides every day. But contributing to the nursing workforce is a strategic priority for OU Health Sciences Center. In the past, our capacity to admit qualified students to the nursing program was like that of nursing schools across the country. Annually, we leave 80,000 qualified people at the door for nursing. So, and oftentimes that shortage is because we have shortages of nursing faculty, inadequate space, not enough equipment that's needed, and the lack of funding. In 2020, there were more than 200 qualified applicants that we could not admit to OU. The momentum of the sales tax exemption provided by Governor Stitt and the Oklahoma legislature last year, combined with the increase in state allocation from the state regions, allowed us to expand the 2021 entering nursing classes Joe had shared. But on top of all of this expansion, the university and the Fran and Earl Ziegler looked at the state's needs for registered nurses and asked ourselves that, what else could we do? We are managing this not by supplementing, but reallocating. We are supplementing and not reallocating the initial investments from the legislature and the regions, which were key to our growth. And then here's what we've decided to do and what we've already done. For the entering class of 2022, as Joe shared, OU has now accepted all qualified applicants to the nursing program. This applies to both the traditional baccalaureate program as well as the accelerated baccalaureate program. The immediate result is about 200 more applicants for fall of 22 entering the class, and at least that many, if not more, will be admitted in fall of 2023. This will double our output of our program in subsequent graduating classes, and I believe it will impact nurses across the state. Additionally, about 40% of our increase in admitted students was to our accelerated baccalaureate program, in which students complete the program and are eligible for the NCLEX licensing exam in just 14 months. OU Fran and Earl Ziegler College of Nursing is expanding opportunities in its nursing programs located in Tulsa, Norman, and we've also expanded to Duncan and Lawton. With this enrollment expansion, the OU College of Nursing will be responsible for preparing more than 25% of new graduate nurses annually in Oklahoma. This allows us to help move the needle to improve health access, health equity, and health care outcomes in our state. As an additional bonus, graduating nurses through this the OU baccalaureate program then increases the pipeline for more advanced practice registered nurses, nursing faculty, and nursing leaders who will be ready to prepare and educate future nurses. I'll reemphasize what President Harris shared earlier. Our academic standards for admission were not lowered. These were all eligible applicants. It is thanks to the support that we have received through the reallocation of our own internal resources, including recent donations from generous donors, that this important lift for Oklahoma is possible. As the largest college of nursing in the state, OU is stepping up and stepping in to address the shortage of nurses in Oklahoma. Thank you very, very much for your support of this important initiative.
Thank you, Dean Hoff. At this time, we're happy to take some questions from the media. If you would, when you ask your question, please address it to either Dean Hoff, Interim Senior Vice President and Provost Gary Raskob, or President Harris. And I'd ask the three of you, if you wouldn't mind, just to stand up here so it's easier to step to the mic. Thank you.
My question, when COVID first began, or kind of went on for a few weeks, there was an issue of folks leaving nursing, leaving hospital work in general. Is the interest still there among the students to enter this field?
Absolutely. We received more than 800 applications to the College of Nursing this fall, and you're seeing an increase in applications across the nation annually.
Cost and how much of this is appropriated by the legislature?
At this point, we're using funds from last year's allocation for the tax exemption, as well as funds from the Board of Regents, and then funds internally from the university.
The cost to expand your admission?
We're looking at about $14 million.
On that, how much is the increase from the Board of Regents? And then I would also ask, is this the first time in OU Health's history that you've been able to admit 100% of the qualified nursing candidates?
This is historical. There's probably not a college in the nation that can say that they're doing this today. We're all aspiring to do it, but this is historical.
And how much was the increase from the Board of Regents, if you don't mind me asking?
Can you quote me on it? Was it $1 million or 500,000?
Well, it'd be, yeah, 5.
I think it was pardon me, it was 500,000, and it's an annual allocation.
5 million.
5 million. Sorry.
Yes. President Harris, you said that it costs more to educate a nurse than they are paid. Does that mean that then the staff is paid to teach them, or then they are paid when they leave school?
Yeah, the cost to educate nurses, and this is not new, and it's one of the reasons you see that there are nationwide 80,000 qualified applicants. across the country who are not admitted into schools of nursing, the cost to educate, the tuition and fees charged that are brought in, along with the state piece of it, don't cover the full cost to educate students beyond the number we typically take. And that's been the limiting factor. What was the change here? There were two factors that changed that. One, last year, the investment by the state, the reinstitution of a historic sales tax exemption that we announced in this room about a year ago, and what it generates allowed us to supplement, and that was directed towards nurses and more physicians. And the second piece, well, I guess three pieces. The second would be additional private contributions by Fran and Earl Ziegler. And then just looking at it, realizing this is a crisis, and that whenever you need to use reserves, you use them during a crisis. So it's the idea of pouring more dollars into that to meet this crisis. You don't save money for a rainy day, and then when it rains, not use them. And right now, this crisis is epidemic. I mean, as we've said, we have so many, the rate-limiting ability to treat patients in this state is not the number of beds. It is the number of nurses that we have, and there are hundreds of beds in this state, and we're not special. It's across the country, that because of this nursing shortage, are not being filled, and patients are being turned away. And so the usual economics around how do you allocate dollars had to change in this instance, and that's a fact. I also, while I'm up here, something else historic happened, and happened just yesterday, and that is, and it's a mouthful, but all the words mean something. For the first time, we've talked about creating a comprehensive, fully integrated academic health system. It's a great headline. It's a lot of words. But in doing that, we brought in our first ever CEO for that, and he's here today, Dr. Rick Lofgren, and he came to us from University of Cincinnati. We are thrilled to have him. He is literally the gold standard in CEOs of academic health systems. I wanted to recognize Dr. Rick Lofgren.
Mr. President, if I may, we're talking about a healthcare crisis, and if we add another word in there, we could talk about a mental health care crisis, that students at the university, certainly employees in healthcare, long hours, overtime, stressed out, all the things that everybody's dealing with the pandemic. So I know there's the effort on the Pediatric Behavioral Health Center, but just generally speaking, does anybody with the university want to talk a little bit about any attempts to expand mental health resources for people who are employees or students?
Yeah, absolutely. So part of the initiative, I guess it was 2 years ago, involved a variety of sources, including student fee dollars. There's been a greater investment, an increase in the number of mental health care professionals available to students. And as you indicate, this is nationwide, right? I mean, every year we see literally 30% increases in individuals, in students, in faculty and staff that need access to mental health care resources. And those numbers were pre-pandemic, and we know that's just exacerbated it. So, like universities across the country, one of the key topics that comes to us is how do we expand mental health care services. Then there's the broader role of OU Health and where it sits, and you correctly indicated that the first ARPA funding dollars, and those dollars that we're looking at are to increase access through having inpatient pediatric behavioral health. It is critically important. The real expert on this is right there in Randy Dowell. But we do have, it's great to have an interim provost who's also, how many years were you dean of the College of Public Health? He knows something about public health. Why don't I ask him to address the public health component of mental health?
Thank you. Yeah, sometimes we tend to think of health and mental health as separate, but they're really integrated. And so, it's really important. All of our colleges are sensitive to the key role that mental health plays in not only the students and the graduates, but in the people they serve. So partnerships are critical for this. I think one of the key things in healthcare, and Dr. Lofgren would know, is integrating primary care with behavioral health, and that's part of what's happening with the pediatric efforts. But co-locating counselors and other people who can help patients with their mental and social issues at the same time as they're getting primary care from a physician or a other healthcare provider is a way forward for healthcare systems of the future, and something that we're going to be looking at very carefully and continuing to build that as well. And then, partnership between public health professionals and our State Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, and the whole issue of substance abuse and opioid it continues to be a problem that needs to be front and center in our thinking, and that is part of many of the programs and efforts that we're training our newest professionals to be addressing.
How many new faculty and staff are you guys going to have to hire to train so many more nurses?
We're anticipating 21 new FTEs. I'd like to just go back to the mental health comment, because with the tax exemption funding that we received last year, we also built a psych mental health NP program, which will admit its first class this year. We'll start small. You always kind of start small with the first class. We'll start with 12, but we can anticipate our enrollment can be up to 24, and that's within 3 years. You'll have additional psych mental health nurse practitioners in the state.
Is the workforce there to hire 21 nurse educators?
We have health systems around the state that are willing to partner with us. We're using what we call a teacher practitioner model, where nurses shouldn't have to decide if they want to teach or they want to practice. We do this in academic healthcare all the time, where you might practice 80% and teach 20%, or vice versa. And that's the model that we're using in Norman and Duncan, and we will expand.
This might be more of an OU Health question, but what's being done once you get more nurses into the career to keep them in those roles?
Yeah, this is the big challenge, and every healthcare system has been facing this. And we've seen the competition out there for nurses and the ratcheting up of compensation. It's been incremental, but continuous over the last 2 years. One of the big initiatives that just came into play is OU Health put in place a $25 million program just last month. A big investment to get away from temporary nurses that are hired on a spot basis and be able to compensate, retain, and attract more nurses. The attrition rate is remarkable, and it's remarkable because of the retirements that we knew were already going to be there, and it's been catalyzed by the punishment and anguish that has come with COVID. And so that market has continued to escalate, and rather than to continue to take an incremental, small bite approach, OU Health made a $25 million investment just last month in its nursing workforce.
We have time for about 2 more questions.
Will
Yes.
accepting 100% of the applicants or most of them be the new standard for the nursing school? And then a follow-up, what's the hospital reaction? I mean, more students means more staff, so how are they are they excited?
Yeah, I think to answer the last part first, there is an excitement because it's the rate limiter. I mean, it really is. How many beds were empty at the peak because we couldn't staff them? 130 hospital beds just at OU Health, right? Not at the rest of the system. We did not have available for patients because we didn't have the staff. So every hospital administrator, not just at OU Health, but across the metro area, the state, the region, and the country, is starved for, is being limited in their ability to provide their care because of this. And then I'll turn the second part of the question. I want to jump out there and say forever in terms of how long will we continue to accept 100%. I feel like if I go beyond this year and next year, I'll get in trouble. So I'm going to turn it over for a more precise answer.
Thank you. Well, it really depends, and it depends on the number of faculty, and the space is going to be our driving factor, but I would think our sweet spot will be anywhere between 500 and 600 students every year. One of the things that we're doing is we've got to look at innovative ways to educate nurses. OU Health has been an amazing partner with our senior nursing students. We've moved away from one faculty with 8 students going to clinical to what we call a precepted model, and OU Health actually pays the nursing student during their clinical. But what that does is it shortens that transition to practice, that gap between student and practitioner, that student becomes part of the culture of the unit and oftentimes ends up working on that unit as a nurse. And so it's working out very, very well for us, and it's a program that has been remodeled across the state as a result of our leadership.
What are you guys going to need from the legislature to keep this program going after next year?
Joe's the negotiator.
All of the money. Thank you. No, we're looking at how can we do this at scale in a way that's sustained, right? We talked about 555 applicants this year that are qualified, all being accepted. We know we can't sustain it over time without additional resources. The question is, you don't want to make an ask that's not realistic and that isn't the most efficient you can ask. So right now, we're running those numbers, and if you're comfortable, you can provide more detail, but we're trying to make that as efficient an ask for continuing dollars as is possible. And so we knew we needed to plug this gaping hole immediately, and then backfill it as we can with those resources. So we want the number to be as small as possible, and we're not there yet. Is that a fair answer? All right.
Thank you all very much. We had one clarification on the funding from the state regents. Holly, did you get that information?
We were going to double check that. I think the overall allocation to the state regents was 5, some of that going to OU, but we'll triple check that before I get it to you.
Okay. Thank you all.